GC Chat. Welcome to GC Chat, a genetic counselling podcast.
We're excited to be back for Season 3, and what a year it has been. How's 2020 been for you, Ash?
Certainly been a different year than I could have imagined it being, Elle. I feel like we have been quite lucky where we are in Australia to have been less impacted than other parts of the world. But certainly we've had to, face a lot of changes in our practice, using telehealth, working from home, and had to adapt to that quite quickly, as well as the stresses that have come for all of us, both in our teams and also with our clients. And there's just so much uncertainty in thinking about what is ahead. What about you?
Yeah, look, definitely. I think it's been a year that's impacted a lot of us, not just in our work, but at home as well. It's just difficult not knowing if or when things might return to that sense of normality. But on a more positive note, it is great to be back in the studio.
Absolutely. Very excited to be bringing you all Season 3. We are still on the lookout for some more cases to finish off our season. So if you do have a case or if you know someone who might, please certainly do get in touch with us, even if you wanted to just have a chat in the first instance about what we do and what to expect when presenting a case with us.
Just a reminder that all cases are de-identified in accordance with Australian and US privacy legislation, so any names used in the recording are pseudonyms. Our episodes contain material that might be distressing to some listeners, so if you feel you need support, please contact your local crisis centre. Some suggestions are listed on our website, along with our privacy statement and disclaimer.
The aim of the podcast is to facilitate discussion and reflection upon the challenges clinicians may face when providing genetic counselling to patients. All opinions are our own.
Please contact us if you have any reflections or questions about the case. We want to hear from people with a range of experience. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram or Twitter by searching GC Chat Podcast, or you can send us an email at gcchatpodcast@gmail.com. If you send us a private message or email, we can promise that your identifying details will not be shared in the podcast without your consent.
We plan to retain the same format as we have in the past 2 seasons. For those who are completely new, today we will present a new case, presented by a genetic counsellor from somewhere around the world. Then, in the next episode, we'll discuss that case again, focusing on our reflections, insights and the counselling interventions used. At the end of that next episode, we'll present a new case and follow that through again. Our episode starts following a referral of a woman to her local genetic service to discuss genetic testing due to a significant personal and family history of cancer. When the genetic counsellor met her,
she was really keen on genetic testing to inform, her future healthcare and also future healthcare of relatives as well. She didn't really have huge concerns about going ahead with testing. We talked a little bit about the emotional impact. She had daughters. She obviously acknowledged the guilt and blame that all parents feel if something is identified on testing, but felt that she'd be able to cope with that knowledge and it would just be something that would become a part of the family story.
The genetic counsellor obtained informed consent and testing proceeded, with a plan made to call the client and discuss these results by phone when available.
8 weeks later, the genetic counsellor called the client when the results of testing were available. She identified herself and asked the client if she still wished to receive the result by phone, as they'd contracted.
And at that point, she told me she didn't want to receive her results anymore. So she wanted to opt out of genetic testing results. She asked, do people do that? Is that possible? I said, yeah, sure. People do that all the time. We can just pop it in your file. Whenever you're ready, we can revisit it. Sticking point for me, we'd identified a mutation.
The counsellor struggled to non-directively explore the client's reasons for not wanting the result.
So I was stuck on this phone call, knowing something about this woman that she herself had chosen, I guess, not to know. And knowing that had, I guess, significant health implications for her. And I guess trying to get the balance between trying to understand why she changed her mind. It had only been 8 weeks since we'd last spoken. So trying to get an idea of what had happened in that 8 weeks, given she was so motivated previously, and trying not to reveal the result by appearing too keen to change her mind.
Upon further questioning, the client revealed that a family member had told her not to obtain her genetic result. This was because she was awaiting approval for a visa.
I did advise her to get an expert opinion, but that I thought that probably her breast cancer diagnosis would be the biggest determining factor.
The client also asked if the result could be disclosed to other at-risk family members without her knowledge.
I'd basically said to her that probably wasn't possible. It would put me in a difficult position, but we could certainly talk to them about their risk management based on the family history information that we had if they were concerned.
The client wanted more time to look into how this may impact her application before receiving the result.
So we just contracted she would look into that a little bit further and we'd speak again in a couple of months. We had good rapport, so I felt confident in sort of making that decision to just leave it for the moment.
She sought supervision from a range of sources following this phone call, including the case's supervising clinical geneticist. These discussions focused on balancing the client's right to autonomy with the potential harms, such as the development of a new primary cancer.
So I did discuss the case quite a bit with the supervising geneticist and also some of my counselling supervisors. We ran through a few different scenarios, like do we respect her right not to know, but we tell her treating doctors so that they're aware of her risk, or do we, tell no one and just wait and see what happens? And I guess to me, probably my biggest concern was, what am I going to do if she never comes back for this result?
They also weighed up the pros and cons.
I guess just trying to work out whether her autonomy outweighed the whole do no harm, and whether we would cause more harm by ignoring her right not to know. Trying to reconcile, I felt really uncomfortable with her not knowing. And I could understand and respect her decision not to know, but I felt like it was a decision that wasn't based on all the information available to her. It was a struggle to know something about someone they didn't know themselves.
Based on these considerations, it was agreed by the wider team that not disclosing this result until the client requested it was the best way forward. The counsellor wrote a clinical letter to both the client and the treating team to document that the results from testing were available. It also documented the screening and medical recommendations based on the family history and the new plan to contact the client in 3 months' time.
2 months later, the counsellor received a call from the client, who was now ready to receive this result. The counsellor was relieved to disclose this. She explained the result and implications for the client screening and management.
So I was like, yes, thank God. I don't have to keep it to myself anymore. I can tell you, I can get you in. We can go through things in a bit more detail. So I gave her the result. She took it really well. She was like, oh, I'm so not surprised. She's like, it's pretty much as I was expecting.
She also had the opportunity to discuss in more detail the motivation behind the client's decision not to receive the result in the first instance.
She did disclose to me she was having family visit at Christmas, and she just didn't want to have to take that information or that knowledge, I guess, to the family Christmas. And even though she, I guess, understood that she didn't have to tell them at Christmas, she said she would have felt compelled to, and that she wouldn't have been able to keep that secret to herself. Yeah, down the track, she'd said to me, look, if I didn't know, I didn't have to tell them. Christmas is over now. Everyone's gone home. I'm happy to receive the information and sort of work through it in my own time and inform them in my own time as well.
We asked the counsellor how she practices self-care for this case and other challenging cases.
It honestly is all those cliche things like exercise, making time for family and friends, taking time away from work, which I think we're all really bad at as well. And to be honest, again, it sounds cliched, but supervision. Like, I really try to carve out time for supervision, even when I feel like I have no time for it.
This case has raised a number of ethical issues, including autonomy and non-maleficence. It also highlights the burden counsellors might face when these issues arise in their practice. Let us know what you think by joining the discussion using the hashtag GCChatPodcast.
GC Chat.